A Muslim woman is sharing why she voted for Donald Trump. Asra Nomani recently wrote about her decision in an opinion piece in the Washington Post. She is among a group of so-called silent supporters of the billionaire turned president-elect. Asra Nomani joins us now via Skype. Thank you so much for being with us today, Asra.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for hearing my voice.
Well, you describe yourself as a pro-abortion, pro-gay marriage, longtime liberal. Why'd you vote for Donald Trump?
Well, I'm also a single mother. I live in Northern Virginia. I, like a lot of Americans, struggle to make ends meet, live paycheck to paycheck. I chose to try to cobble together my career after my son was born, and I knew I was going to raise him by myself. And so I try to be a present for him as a mother and also make a living. So that means that I don't have workplace health insurance. And over these years, as I've tried to afford the Obamacare health insurance, I've been unable to afford it. The premiums are too high. I have a busted knee right now, and I couldn't afford to get into the program, and just had to hobble around for several weeks this fall. So the other issue for me that I think will matter significantly to your viewers is that I am a Muslim, and I stand firmly against the extremist interpretation of Islam that's exported to the world from Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And for 8 years, I have been begging the Obama administration to take a very pragmatic, real approach to that extremism. They have refused to do so, doing a tap dance instead. And I, as a Muslim American, just could not imagine another 4 years of that kind of tap dance. And so thus, I cast my ballot for Donald Trump.
And why did you decide to come forward about your support for Mr. Trump?
Well, I'm also from West Virginia, and I love the people of West Virginia. West Virginia voted for Donald Trump. Many of my neighbors voted for him. Many of them had their hearts broken when candidate Clinton spoke insensitively about their futures as coal miners. They are not racist, they are not bigots, they are not chauvinists or sexist. They may be different in their economic status and in their education, perhaps. But I'm an educated person, and I saw that the voters for Donald Trump were just being caricatured as ignorant, uneducated, racist people. And, my progressive values is to see the humanity in everyone. And so I couldn't just stand silent while I watched this kind of degradation happening to half the electorate. And so I came forward to restore some sort of humanity to the conversation and really advocate for the people on the far right and the people on the far left to come to the middle, on a middle path where we recognize each other's humanity and see that we're all well-intentioned. We may have different politics, but we're all human beings.
Absolutely. Well, Asra, many Muslims say they fear Donald Trump because he wants to halt Muslim immigration to reassess the process. What would you say to them, and what do you think about that policy?
Well, as I wrote in the Washington Post piece, I am an American Muslim, and I do not fear for my safety in this country. I feel more safe in America than I would any Muslim country in the world. I am able to sit here with you with my hair uncovered and still be legal. I'm able to drive myself to the voting booth. I'm able to vote. I'm able to work for a living, make my own self-determined choices. My house right now is filled with the lovely scent of my father's cooking because he stands in support of everything that I'm doing, not as a barrier to my progress. And so what I say to those Muslims is just think deeply about who it is that's telling us that we should be afraid. If they look carefully, they will follow the money back to the governments of Qatar and Saudi Arabia. They want to set up a situation in which the narrative is that the West is at war with Islam, because that way we will not have the conversation about the ideology that they preach that is, in fact, at war with the rest of the world. And so I urge them to really think deeply about how we can best serve a progressive, tolerant, woman-friendly interpretation of Islam in the world that's compatible with the West. And I would argue that it is in transcending our fears, seeing the humanity in others, and coming together in that humanity.
Well, are you concerned at all that the Trump presidency will create a negative climate towards Muslims in America?
Well, I see that there are many partisan, special interest groups that are making that a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that concerns me very deeply. I also spoke out in the days after the election because I saw that my left, the liberals that I consider my friends, refused to accept the results of the election. This hashtag campaign, not my president, these protesters out on the street saying that they will resist this presidency, they manifest a movement that is the one that wanted Hillary Clinton elected. And so it is partisan politics. And what I believe will happen is that, unfortunately, unless the left and liberals wake up, we are simply going to continue battling the universe from a place of identity politics. And this election should be a wake-up call to the left that folks don't want that. They voted against that. The left lost this election. And what I would just ask my friends on the right and the conservatives is to really take this moment to go to the soft place in your heart and manifest that movement of compassionate conservatism and really feel the calling of people on values that I also agree with, such as, same-sex marriage, the right of a woman over her body, immigrant rights, and just go to that place and try to protect, all that you value in this world in terms of the ability of all people to live self-determined, dignified lives. And that would just be my gentle calling.
And Asra, were you at all insulted by Donald Trump's comments to Mr. and Mrs. Khan, the parents of the Muslim soldier killed in Iraq? And what was your reaction to all of that? What's your take on that?
Well, I was literally sitting here in my home downstairs in my living room watching that speech by Mr. Khan. And I sat there and I wondered, who is the woman beside him? She was not introduced by the DNC. And I am a Muslim woman who has fought for years now for the right of our women in our community to speak their voice. And so what Donald Trump expressed was the same question that I had in my mind. He is a man with very little bedside manner, but he speaks other people's thoughts aloud for them. And he was pilloried. And that was just one more example where partisan special interest groups use that opportunity to caricature him as a racist. This hashtag started trending called "Can You Hear Us Now?" And who was it put forward by? But an organization that has put forward many of the partisan agendas of Hillary Clinton. And so, again, that was put forward as if it was the authentic voices of Muslim women speaking. And I have no doubt that the women who participated were asserting and expressing their voices, but it was for a political end. And the caricature of Donald Trump at that moment was also for a political end. And so I was not offended. He really actually said aloud what I was wondering myself. He got in trouble for it. I saw that and I stayed quiet. And that's what happened to, I think, many of us through these past months. We just didn't want to have to be bashed like those that dared to come out in support of Donald Trump was happening to them. So I sit here with you. I cannot say I am a supporter of Donald Trump. I'm somebody who voted for him. I'm equal opportunity cynic when it comes to politicians.
Gotcha.
And we will have to see what happens in the next 4 years. And I'll try to advocate as much as I can for this compassionate middle path that we're talking about.
Now, you say that you are on the correct side of history on slavery. What do you mean by that?
Well, I was so proud as a young girl to grow up in West Virginia. What I say by that is that, my state of West Virginia lost many great resources. It's a poor state now. I was born in India, and I joke sometimes that I went from one third world country to another. The education system, the resources, they aren't what they are on the East Coast and in urban centers. And so, nonetheless, our motto in West Virginia is mountaineers are always free. And in asserting my vote on election day, I was also making that same point, that we are free. We are free to make up our own minds. We are free to leave the identity politics that may have been ours for so many years, leave, the groupthink that might have been a part of our lives. And, this is a challenge in all of our lives, right? Because sometimes the community in which we sit doesn't always, practice that which we believe our moral compass leads us to conclude. And so that's my position about West Virginia being on the correct side of history. And I say that only because, Virginia, where I live now, was a difficult choice for me because it was on the side of slavery during the Civil War. And I had chosen to live here after the state voted for President Obama. And all this politics aside, what I'm basically essentially trying to say is that, we have to look deep in our hearts for sort of where the moral compass of our country and our lives should go. And that's the meditation that I think we should always be doing.
And finally, Asra, as you mentioned about President Obama being politically correct on the issue of extreme Islam terrorism, what would you like to see a President Donald Trump do about radical Islam?
Well, we had a moment in our history when we had to figure out how we were going to deal with apartheid South Africa. We decided that we were going to boycott South Africa. We decided that we were not going to participate on equal terms with a nation that dared to segregate and practice so much prejudice and discrimination against its population. And so governments like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, Iran also, have that same type of gender apartheid policy. And I believe that we need to have a really strong policy with those states. We have complicating factors like military bases, military sales to those countries. But what I would hope is that we would establish a national security policy in which we will not allow governments of Saudi Arabia and Qatar to continue their exportation of this extremist ideology. We will stand up to it like we did communist ideology, and we will say it's not acceptable anymore for the 21st century, and allow all of our diplomatic relations, military sales, and other important issues of engagement with another country to be defined by that value system. And if we do not do so, we are going to be sitting here in 10 years and 20 years continuing to have a conversation about the challenges of extremist Islam. And I don't want that to happen. I want us to move on to living lives of peace.
I know that I have just one last question for you really, really quickly. What has life been like since your Muslim friends and family have known that you are a supporter or you voted for Donald Trump? What's been the backlash?
Well, I call it a liberal lash because it is just overwhelming in its just intolerance. I mean, I don't have any other word for it. We all know that people do not like others leaving their community, leaving the groupthink of a community. But I find it really disheartening that my vote then means that folks can't be my friend anymore. They feel like I have shamed myself.
Have you lost friends?
I have lost friends on Facebook, that social media world. But the thing that has happened also that's so important is that I have gained hundreds of friends. And they are people who are also seeking the humanity in the other. And that is good for me. As we learn in life, they're not really friends if they can't hang with you,
Absolutely.
differences. And I've been called every name in the book now. Today I was attacked as being a brown-faced, supporter of Trump, by a white man, right? As if liberal white politics allows them then to come after me for the color of my skin. So
Asra.
I see through it, and I thank you all for all your support too.
Thank you so much for your insights and for being with us today, Asra Nomani.
Thank you.